My name is Audra Wynn, 42 years old. The key turned with a dry, metallic click that didn't sound like metal at all. It sounded like something fragile surrendering, the tiny snap a life makes when it divides itself into before and after. The brass knob was cold, an indifferent moon beneath my palm, and the door gave not a creak but a whisper, as if the house itself had leaned close to say, "Don't. Go back downstairs. Give yourself one more merciful minute of not knowing." I didn't. The door swung wider and the air came at me, thick, warm, saturated with the spice of his cologne, braided to something light and floral. A sweetness too young for this room, for this hour, for the woman who owned this bed. The light did not help. Afternoon poured through the window in honeyed panes, a generous painter flattering everything it touched. The duvet I'd straightened that morning, the framed photo from our 20th anniversary on the dresser, the dust motes slow dancing in the beam like the room itself had been held in a delicate, loving breath. I watched them suspend and thought, absurdly, how beautiful. Then sight arranged itself, unmerciful and clear. Logan, 46, hair silvering at the temples, in the distinguished way I used to tease him about at dinner parties. My silver fox, and the same shoulders I'd needed in the glow of late-night TV when stress made a fist between his shoulder blades. His back, his hands, the familiar geography I could navigate in the dark. And her, Madison, 24. My daughter's best friend, the girl who'd rinsed salad in our sink on Thanksgiving, who'd cried on our couch over a ruined love while I made chamomile and tucked a blanket around her knees, who'd once called me her second mom with an ache in her voice that made me promise, silently, to be softer with her than the world had been. They were in our bed, not some impersonal hotel anonymity or impetuous back seat, here in the square footage where I slept and woke and dreamed us whole. The Egyptian cotton I'd splurged on for our anniversary swirled around their hips like an accomplice. Time fractured. It stretched until I could count the individual dust specks in the sunlight, then snapped back so hard my stomach threatened revolt. My brain, stubborn and loyal, tried to paint a different scene over this one. Misunderstanding, illusion, anything but this, and kept failing. "Maybe," said the voice trained by 2 decades of love to defend him, "maybe there's an explanation. Maybe this is nothing like what it looks like. Maybe—" She turned her head first. Madison's eyes found mine across the room, across the bed, across the fault line that had just opened in the floor and swallowed the woman I'd been 10 seconds ago. She did not gasp. She did not fling sheets to her chin or scramble into a shamed shadow. She smiled. It was small and deliberate, a curl at the corner of her mouth that drifted like smoke. There was nothing girlish or nervous about it. It was a calm, private thing, the expression of someone who's just checked the box on a list. Not surprise, not regret, victory. My body remembered that breathing was a thing one did. Inhale, then struggle. The sound that left me wasn't a scream. It was thinner, submerged, as if something inside me cracked under pressure 100 feet below the surface. Logan shifted. The mattress complained. He turned and saw me, and for a heartbeat, I watched his face perform a speed run of humanity. Fear, guilt, calculation. It was the calculation that iced me. The quick arithmetic of a man searching for a version of this that might not require losing everything. "Audra," he said, my name broken on his tongue like maybe if he mispronounced it, he could plead a lesser charge. I couldn't find speech. The room suddenly had too many edges, and every one of them pointed at me. The bedside clock ticked. Somewhere downstairs, the compressor in the refrigerator kicked on. Outside, a lawnmower droned past, oblivious to the way the universe had been undone at my address. The ordinary marched undisturbed, while my heart clutched like a machine seizing without oil. I took a step backward. Another. The door, patient as a witness, stood ajar, and when my shoulder touched it, the wood was as cold as the knob had been, as cold as I felt under the burn. Madison did not cover herself. She watched me, that feline calm, and the smile, God help me, did not leave. It softened, like she was letting me in on something inevitable, as if to say, "You see, it was always going to be this." The house shifted under my feet like a boat, turning its bow into a wind I hadn't known was blowing. I thought of the groceries list on the fridge in my handwriting: milk, coffee, basil, detergent, and how monstrous the normal had become under this new light. I thought of the lilies from last week, my favorite, their scent still ghosting the hallway, and wanted to rip every petal from every stem in every florist who'd ever sold such flowers. I thought of my daughter's laugh floating down these stairs on Sunday morning while Madison perched beside her, bare feet on my rug. Logan started again, and then nothing useful came. A man accustomed to negotiating millions at conference tables discovered language bankrupt at the only table that mattered. I stepped into the hall. The air there was cooler. My fingers left a damp print on the knob. I stared at it. Small evidence that I existed. My body began to shake the way a building shivers 2 seconds before it collapses. Behind me, sheets rustled, feet found carpet, the low friction scrape of skin on cotton. His voice, frantic, hers, a murmur so level it felt rehearsed. I closed the door. The hallway was narrower than it had been this morning. I pressed my palm to the wall. Paint smooth, a faint roller ridge under my fingertips, from the day Marlene and I redid this space in a soft eggshell while Logan couldn't get to it. The detail cut me open. The woman who rolled that paint across this wall believed in future holidays. The woman whose hand rested there now had just seen the hinge where her life snapped. Stairs. I took them slower than I thought, each tread a negotiation between gravity and will. The banister steadied me. At the landing, there's a framed photo. The 4 of us last Thanksgiving. Me, Logan, our daughter, and the woman in my bed. I'd loved that picture for its accidental warmth, the way sunlight hit our faces. Today, the glass reflected a stranger with a mouth she didn't recognize. Kitchen tile underfoot, cool through my socks. I poured water into a glass and spilled half of it onto the counter because my hands had become unfamiliar, separate creatures whose only skill was tremble. I tried to drink. My throat refused. The refrigerator motor droned like a prayer I didn't know anymore. The grocery list stuck to the door with a magnet. Milk, bread, chicken, egg, basil, detergent, life. I could not make those words mean what they had meant. Upstairs, footsteps, voices. The house framed the sounds the way a cathedral frames a confession, echoing, impossible to unhear. The bedroom door opened, a noise I would now be able to pick out of any night, and closed, softer than it had opened when I first touched it. I felt rather than saw the movement on the stairs, his hesitant descent, the pause in the hallway where he realized this conversation would not happen behind a door, her steps controlled, delaying the moment she'd have to pass through the sightlines of my home. He appeared first, shirt shoved on inside out in his hurry, hair wrong, as if his hand had raked it in penance. The face I knew and did not know, as familiar as my own toothbrush, and now as alien as someone else's dream. He opened his mouth, but the shape of apology made him gag it back. There are no words for this, I wanted to say. Not that can build anything. Only wrecking words live here. Madison came into view behind him, tidy, composed, her hair a little mussed in that flattering way that magazines call effortless. She stopped 3 steps from the bottom and looked at me as if she were checking the weather before choosing a coat. "Audra," she said, with a soft sincerity that would have won a courtroom. "I think I should go." "You think?" The words scraped out of me sharper than I intended. "You think you should go?" She inclined her head, contrition arranged carefully on her face like a place setting. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." This way, as if the method had offended me more than the fact. A performance note rather than a moral category. She descended the last steps and crossed the vestibule with measured dignity, my front door opening for her like a doorman. At the threshold, she turned back, eyes cool as a lake under cloud. "Marlene doesn't need to know," she said. "We can keep this between us." A kindness, offered like a charity check at a gala. A chess move disguised as mercy. I stared at her and saw every Sunday lunch, every thank you for having me, every small attention paid to my husband as if practice wears civility's costume. I wanted to laugh, and I wanted to bite. "How thoughtful," I said, "to consider my daughter's feelings." At last a flinch, barely, but I saw it. Something pleased me in a way that scared me. She left. The door clicked. Silence, thick as wool, poured into the room. Logan exhaled like a man who's been holding his breath underwater too long. He moved toward me, then stopped when I stepped back, reflexive, as if my bones had learned new choreography. "Audra, please," he said, his voice a thread pulled through a needle's eye. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" "Explain the scent of her perfume braided into our sheets? Explain the way you turned your phone face down and called it client confidentiality? Explain the lilies last week? Funeral flowers mistaken for romance?" In the cavern where my voice used to live, words gathered finally, heavy and precise. "You did this in our bed." He closed his eyes, a blink that lasted too long, a man hoping darkness could erase facts. He swallowed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," I repeated, tasting the syllables. They dissolved like sugar, leaving the grit of insult. I set the glass down with care because smashing it would have felt good, and nothing that felt good could be trusted just now. He reached out. I took another step back. The space between us became a geography lesson, borders redrawn without a treaty. Upstairs, the bedroom kept its secrets. Down here, the kitchen waited with its lists and magnets and polite machines. Through the window, the late sun threw long rectangles across the floor. In them, the dust motes settled, exhausted from their dance. And in my head, like a single word carved into marble, the shape of Madison's smile remained. Not apology, not even defiance, something cooler, confirmation. 6 weeks earlier, I would have told you my life was ordinary in the best possible way. Mornings began with Logan's coffee ritual. Grind beans, press slowly, pour carefully, like precision could keep us safe, and ended with our 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher, side by side. Our daughter Marlene was thriving downtown with her first real job in marketing. We had a trip to Italy on the calendar for our 20th anniversary. By every visible measure, we were a solid, good family. But visible measures lie. They lie beautifully. That autumn was gentle and deceptive. Morning light fell like mercy on our street of oaks turning amber. I'd wake to the sound of Logan in the shower, steam curling under the door, and feel that small flutter of love that habit can disguise as contentment. Then he'd step out with his phone already in hand, thumb flicking across the screen, and somewhere inside me, a micropause would form, the mind's quiet way of noting a change it isn't ready to name. "Client messages," he'd say without looking up. His company was thriving, real estate booming again. The excuse fit the facts, so I let it fit me. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. I liked the freedom, the hum of the house around me, the sense of being present for Marlene even though she was grown. Some days Logan would pop in from his home office between calls. He'd kiss the top of my head, murmur, "You busy?" and smell of peppermint gum and stress. I'd say always, and he'd laugh, and that laugh used to fill rooms. Lately it barely filled the space between us. The distance didn't come like a storm. It crept in like humidity, invisible, dense, making everything slightly heavier. Late nights at work, a new gym membership, different cologne, tiny data points I plotted and then erased because love teaches you to protect your own denial. Then Madison started appearing again. She'd been Marlene's best friend since college, the girl with the camera-ready smile and the tragic backstory everyone forgives too easily. Parents divorced, father remarried, mother moved away. She called me Ms. Audra in those early years, with affection that felt real. When she and Marlene graduated, she became a fixture of our holidays, sitting in the chair closest to Logan because that's where the light was best for photos. Now she was back often, dropping by on afternoons when Marlene was still at work. "I was in the neighborhood," she'd say cheerfully. "Needed a friendly face?" I believed her. I made coffee for the 3 of us, chatted about job interviews, offered references, the maternal mentor role I was good at. Logan would join for a few minutes, his demeanor pleasant, professional, harmless. After she left, he'd say, "She's a sweet kid." "She is," I agreed. "She's had it rough." He'd kiss my hair and say, "You have such a good heart." That night I lay awake thinking how love sometimes feels like being thanked for your blindness. A Saturday brunch stands out in my memory like a photo that developed too slowly. Marlene had found a new restaurant downtown, all exposed brick and jazz. Madison came too. She wore a floral dress that smelled of pear and blush suede. When she leaned in to hug me, the fragrance was gentle and fresh and utterly harmless. "What a lovely scent," I said. Joe Malone, she replied. Then she smiled, that polite, photogenic smile, and for a second her gaze flicked to Logan. Just a second, barely a spark. He was already reaching for his napkin. The moment vanished into clinking cutlery and a waiter asking about refills. But the scent stayed. Weeks later, it would climb the stairs ahead of me. That day, I told myself what every reasonable woman tells herself when intuition tugs her sleeve. Don't be paranoid. He's older. She craves father figures. You're reading into nothing. You have everything. Don't ruin it by looking for ghosts. The mind is a skilled editor. It cuts scenes that don't fit the story we paid for. Weeks dripped by. Logan was still affectionate in public, a hand at my back during dinner parties, the performance of a husband who remembers he's being watched. But in private, there was distance, like the air between us had texture now. One night I found him at the kitchen island pouring bourbon over ice. He rarely drank alone. Long day? I asked. Endless, he said. The clink of ice was too loud. Then, without meeting my eyes, you ever feel like life's just the same rooms on repeat? I laughed softly. Depends who's in the rooms. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I guess so. Later, when he kissed me goodnight, the bourbon was still on his breath and some new foreign note underneath. Something spiced, darker than his usual cologne. I nearly asked what it was. Nearly. But love teaches silence long before it teaches speech. Then came the lilies. He brought them home on a Tuesday with a boyish grin I hadn't seen in months. No occasion, no reason. Just because, he said. Their scent flooded the hallway. Sweet, thick, almost holy. I laughed and kissed him, grateful for the gesture, for the illusion of us turning a corner. That night, we made love for the first time in weeks, and I cried afterward without knowing why. He held me and whispered, "We're okay, right?" "Of course," I said. But when I closed my eyes, the perfume from brunch rose like incense beneath the lilies. The next morning, as I changed the sheets, one pollen-stained petal fell onto the white cotton and left a golden print that would never wash out. I kept it anyway, because part of me already knew. Marlene called that weekend. "Mom, you and Dad should come out with us Friday. Madison got a promotion and wants to celebrate." I almost said yes. Then I heard Logan in the background of my life say he'd be working late that night. Two truths couldn't occupy the same space, so I hung up on the one that hurt less. That Friday, the house was too quiet. I poured myself wine, opened my laptop, tried to work on a logo for a new client. Lines blurred, shapes didn't fit. At 9:00 p.m., I glanced out the window and imagined Logan in some conference room bathed in blue light and strategy, while I rendered beauty in silence. The phone buzzed. A text from him. "Investor meeting ran long. Don't wait up. Love you." I typed back, "Okay, be safe." My fingers hesitated over the heart emoji, then deleted it. I went to bed and dreamed I was painting a wall again, rolling a fresh coat over an old color that wouldn't quite disappear, no matter how many layers I added. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon heavy with rain, Marlene and Madison came for brunch. Madison wore that same perfume, light, feminine, spring in a bottle. When she hugged me, I felt the invisible hand of fate pat my back. "You smell nice," I managed. She smiled sweetly. "Thank you." Across the table, Logan lifted his coffee cup to his mouth, and his eyes met hers for just a fraction too long. I saw it. A flicker of guilt or conspiracy? I couldn't tell. But my pulse found a new rhythm, sharp and restless. That evening, he came home with another bouquet of lilies. I should have recognized them for what they were, apologies delivered before the crime was complete. When he kissed me good night, I smelled pear and blush suede beneath his shirt collar. And I knew, or rather, I almost knew, because knowing requires courage, and mine was still asleep. The day the lilies began to die, the air in our house changed. Their scent, once soft, floral, innocent, had grown thick and sour, clinging to the curtains, seeping into the fabric of our lives like a secret gone rancid. I caught myself spraying air freshener every morning, as if Febreze could smother betrayal. It was around then that Logan started coming home later. The gym became his second office, or so he said. He'd walk in at 9 or 10, shower immediately, and emerge smelling of that same unfamiliar spice. Too sharp, too young, too deliberate. "You're getting in great shape," I said one night, forcing a smile as he unbuttoned his cuffs. He grinned, tired but smug. trying to keep up with the young guys. The joke landed like a rock. He checked his phone. Always the phone. His fingers moved with a speed that made me ache for when they'd moved like that over my skin. I watched him from the kitchen table as he scrolled, the blue light carving his face into fragments. "Who are you texting?" I asked, the question sugar-coated in casualness. "Mike," he said easily. "About the Thompson deal." Mike existed. The deal existed. The explanation made sense. But sense and truth aren't the same species. He slipped the phone into his pocket and kissed my forehead. "Don't wait up tomorrow. We're meeting a potential investor after hours." I nodded. "Work is work?" He smiled, grateful, maybe even relieved that I'd ask no more, and disappeared upstairs. The floorboards groaned under his feet like they wanted to confess. The next day unfolded in grayscale. I worked on a hotel rebrand, answered client emails, pretended not to notice the tension headache pulsing behind my eyes. Around 2 p.m., Marlene called. "Mom, can we push our furniture shopping to tomorrow? Something came up at work." "Of course, honey," I said, pressing my thumb to my temple. "Tomorrow's fine." "You're the best," she said, and hung up. The quiet after her voice left was unbearable. The house felt staged, like a museum of a life no one lived in anymore. I shut my laptop, swallowed 2 aspirin, and decided to rest. Maybe a nap would reset the unease thrumming beneath my ribs. When I got home that afternoon, the driveway was empty. Logan's car wasn't there yet. I climbed the stairs, still in my work clothes, thinking only of aspirin and darkness. I reached for the guest bedroom door. Then I heard it, a sound from our room. Soft, almost nothing. A whisper of fabric, a breath. I froze. My body knew before my mind did. Every instinct screamed, "Don't go in there." But I did. The key turned, and the sound it made will live forever in my bones, like glass cracking underfoot. The door opened. The air hit first, warm, human, intimate. It smelled of sweat and something floral, something that didn't belong to me. My brain refused the information at first, like a computer rejecting corrupted data. Then the light shifted, and the world rearranged itself into truth. Logan. Madison. The bed I'd made that morning. The sheets I'd chosen for our anniversary. The life I'd built, unmade in one snapshot of motion and skin. My body stopped obeying me. My hands went cold, my knees trembled, my heartbeat filled my throat. I wanted to scream, but the sound that escaped was smaller than breath, a gasp from the bottom of a drowning lung. Madison's head turned first. Her eyes met mine, steady, blue, fearless, and she smiled. That smile, not shock, not shame. Something slower, deeper, as if she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "I won," her eyes said. Time fractured. I stepped back, one step, then another, until my shoulder hit the doorframe. Logan turned, sheet tangled around his waist. His face cycled through expressions like a slideshow: confusion, horror, guilt, calculation. Then the calculation stuck. "Audra," he started, voice shaking. I closed the door. The sound of the latch clicked, sealing the scene behind wood and paint. For a moment, I simply stood there, hand on the knob, unable to move. My whole body trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of something too heavy to name. Then came the voices, his, frantic, hers, calm. I couldn't make out words, only tones, one pleading, one composed. I turned and walked down the hall. Each step felt like wading through cement. My hand brushed the wall, the paint smooth under my palm. I remembered Marlene helping me repaint it years ago, her laughter bright as sunlight. The memory hurt worse than anything physical could. Downstairs, the world kept pretending to be normal. Sunlight through the kitchen window, the faint smell of lilies, still clinging to the air. I poured water, spilled it, tried again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Footsteps above, movement. The door creaked open. I heard them on the stairs. I didn't turn until Logan's shadow stretched across the tile. He was still half-dressed, hair damp, voice trembling. "Audra, please, let me explain." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing my husband's face. "Explain?" The word came out flat, an echo. He swallowed. This isn't what it looks like." Madison appeared behind him, fully dressed, perfectly composed. She might have been stepping out after tea, not out of betrayal. She gave a small, measured nod. "I think I should go." "You think?" I repeated. Her voice softened into that practiced tone people use when they're about to rewrite a story. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." This way, not I'm sorry for what I did. The distinction sliced clean through me. "How kind of you," I said, "to consider my daughter's feelings." Her expression flickered, just for a heartbeat before settling back into composure. She turned to leave. At the door, she paused. Marlene doesn't need to know, she said quietly. We can keep this between us. That sentence was so smooth, so self-assured, it almost sounded rehearsed. I laughed. It was a raw, broken sound. You're worried about Marlene? No answer. She opened the door and slipped out into daylight, perfume trailing behind her like the aftertaste of poison. Then it was just me and Logan. He took a step forward. Audra, Don't. He stopped. You did this, I said softly. In our bed. He closed his eyes, tears slipping out like he thought they might buy forgiveness. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry, I repeated, my voice trembling now. That's for stepping on someone's foot. That's for forgetting milk, not for this. He reached out. I stepped back. The air between us felt radioactive. I love you, he said. I know you don't believe that, but I do. I love you. This thing with Madison, it was a mistake. A mistake? I asked. 3 months? That's not a mistake, Logan. That's a decision. Over and over again. He sank into a chair, hands over his face. I don't know why. I was stupid. She made me feel... Don't, I cut in. Don't you dare finish that sentence. The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, marking the end of us. Finally, I spoke. Get out. He looked up. Audra, please, don't do this. Let's talk. Get out, I said again louder. Pack a bag. Go wherever you need to go. Just not here. He hesitated, then nodded, broken. Upstairs, drawers opened and shut, zippers rasped. I stood in the kitchen and tried to breathe. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. When he came back down, suitcase in hand, he looked at me one last time. I'll call you, he said. Don't. The door closed behind him. Silence. Heavy, absolute, merciless silence. I sank to the floor, my knees giving way, my hands covering my face. For a long time I stayed there, breathing in the scent of lilies and perfume and loss, until the air itself felt contaminated. When I finally lifted my head, the light had changed. It was softer now, golden, almost kind. But I wasn't fooled, because golden light lies. The night after Logan left, the house sounded wrong. Every floorboard had a new language. Every shadow felt like it remembered something I didn't want to. Even the refrigerator hummed at a pitch that felt accusatory. I slept on the couch, though sleep isn't the right word for what I did. I drifted in and out of a half-waking fog, every creak of the settling house dragging me back to that moment, the click of the key, the scent of her perfume, the curve of Madison's smile. By dawn, I was still sitting there, eyes burning, body rigid, mind looping the scene until it lost coherence. When sunlight finally broke through the blinds, it was merciless. I stood, bones aching like I'd aged decades overnight, and walked into the kitchen. The lilies on the counter were wilted now, their petals curling in on themselves like they knew they didn't belong here. I threw them out. Then I opened my phone. 11 missed calls from Logan. 6 messages. Please talk to me. I'll give you space, but we need to talk. I'm sorry, Audra. I love you. I deleted them all. 2 messages from Marlene. Hey, Mom, you still on for lunch tomorrow? Love you. The words hit me harder than anything Logan had said. My daughter, my bright, trusting, kind-hearted Marlene, had no idea her best friend had just dismantled our family. I typed back, yes, tomorrow works. Love you too. Then set the phone face down like it had burned me. That's when another notification appeared. Unknown number. Audra, it's Madison. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm truly sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please don't tell Marlene. It would destroy her. I stared at it for a long time. Then my fingers began to move. You meant to hurt me. That's why you made sure I walked in. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I know you must hate me right now. You have every right to. But Marlene doesn't deserve to lose both her best friend and her parents' marriage over this. Both her best friend and her parents' marriage. She wrote it like they were equal losses. You should have thought about that before you slept with her father, Madison. I did, but it happened anyway. People make mistakes. Mistakes. That word again. As if her actions had tripped and fallen into the bed by accident. I hurled the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a sharp crack and fell face down on the tile, intact, like even gravity refused to grant me the satisfaction of something breaking besides me. By the next morning, exhaustion had become my second skin. I woke up still in yesterday's clothes, makeup smudged, hair tangled, heart hollow. For exactly 3 seconds, I didn't remember. I blinked into the quiet, saw the filtered morning light on the ceiling, and for those 3 seconds, I was just a woman waking up in her house. Then it all came rushing back. The door, the smell, the smile, and the world collapsed again. I forced myself to stand, to shower. I scrubbed my skin raw, as if heat and water could erase what I'd seen. When I stepped out, steam still ghosting around me, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My face was drawn, pale, eyes rimmed red, but I was still standing. "Fake it until you make it," I whispered to the stranger staring back, "or at least until you figure out what you're making." Marlene was coming over at noon. I had 2 hours to rebuild the mask. I made coffee, measured, poured, pressed. The ritual helped. It gave me something to do that didn't require feeling. The house looked almost normal again. Counters clean, curtains drawn open, no sign of war except the faint smell of lilies I couldn't wash away. At 11:57, Marlene's car pulled into the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I saw her step out, sunlight catching in her chestnut hair. She was smiling, waving, carrying her laptop bag. The sight nearly buckled me. She knocked once before letting herself in. "Mom." "Hey, sweetheart," I said, voice steady only because I'd practiced it. She hugged me, warm and unsuspecting. "You look tired. Everything okay?" "Didn't sleep well," I lied. "You know how it is." We sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through furniture options for her apartment. She was radiant, chatting about colors and fabrics, her excitement bubbling in a way only new beginnings can produce. I nodded, offered opinions, smiled when she looked up. Inside, I was screaming. "Your father is cheating on me with Madison. She wanted me to catch them. Everything you think is real isn't." But I said none of it. Instead, I poured her coffee and asked about work. Halfway through lunch, she said casually, "Where's Dad today?" The question landed like a blade. "Working," I replied quickly. "Big project. You know him." She looked at me, brow furrowed. "You two okay?" "Of course," I said too fast. "Why?" "You both seem, I don't know, stressed lately." I smiled. Too wide, too brittle. "Just life, honey. Nothing to worry about." She studied me for a moment, the way she used to when she was little, and sensed a storm brewing behind my calm. Then she nodded. "Okay, but you'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" "Of course I would," I lied again. We spent another hour picking out a couch she loved, a lamp she didn't, and I ordered takeout for lunch. Pad Thai, her favorite. We laughed, pretended the world wasn't tilted. When she finally gathered her things to leave, she hugged me again. "Love you, Mom. You're the best." "Love you too, sweetheart." I watched her car roll down the driveway, then parked myself at the kitchen counter. The silence roared. The moment the door closed behind her, my composure cracked. I sank onto the floor, tears spilling in violent waves that left me gasping. I cried for the marriage I'd lost, for the family she still believed existed, for the version of me that had gone to bed 2 nights ago thinking lilies meant love. When the sobs finally subsided, I sat there among the fragments of myself and understood something new. Pain was no longer the enemy. It was fuel. Madison had wanted me to see. She had orchestrated the discovery, the timing, the open door, the soundtrack of betrayal. That meant this wasn't just an affair. It was a message. I wiped my face, stood, and found my phone. The screen was cracked, but still alive. If she wanted to play games, she'd chosen the wrong opponent. I opened my laptop, typed Madison's full name into the search bar, and began to read. Madison Carter, 24. I typed the name slowly, each letter deliberate, as if spelling it correctly would make sense of what she'd done. The search results bloomed across my screen. Social media profiles, tagged photos, fragments of a life she'd curated so perfectly it looked airbrushed. Her Instagram was a shrine to soft light and effortless charm. Coffee cups, sunsets, self-portraits in flowy dresses, captions about self-care and gratitude, thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. I double-tapped those photos before, left little hearts beside moments she'd stolen from my house. Scrolling backward, I started to see it, the threads of a pattern hiding in plain sight. Pictures at our home over holidays, barbecues, birthdays. There she was at Thanksgiving, holding a glass of wine in our kitchen. At Christmas, by the tree Logan and I decorated together. Her eyes always drifted toward him in group shots, the angle subtle, the lighting flattering. Always standing close, always inside our frame. 6 months ago, a company charity event, my husband's arm faintly visible in the background of her selfie. Caption: So proud to support great people doing great work. He'd told me he was working late that night. The bile rose in my throat. My hands shook as I zoomed in. His profile, unmistakable. He wasn't supposed to be in that picture, but there he was, blurred and guilty, an extra in her story. 3 months, he'd said, but this went back further, longer. I closed the browser before I threw the laptop. My pulse thudded in my ears, the sound of a dam about to give. I needed answers, real ones. That evening, I called a number a friend had once mentioned. Tara Bennett, private investigator. Former NYPD, discreet, ruthless, good. Bennett Investigations, a steady voice answered. My husband is having an affair, I said. I need proof, and I need to know everything about the woman. There was no hesitation. Can we meet tomorrow morning? Yes, I said, and bring your sharpest knives. Tara was exactly what I expected. Mid-40s, short hair, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that saw through excuses before you finished breathing them out. We met at a small cafe far enough from my neighborhood that I wouldn't run into anyone who mattered. She listened quietly as I told her the story. The door, the smile, the silence. Her face didn't flinch. You're sure about the identity? She asked. Madison Carter, my daughter's best friend. Tara let out a low whistle. That's complicated. That's one word for it. What are you hoping for? Divorce leverage or just peace of mind? I hesitated. Both. I want evidence. Where, when, how long. And I want to know who she really is. Tara nodded. Surveillance starts today. We'll tail him, get photos, timestamps, messages if we can. Full background on her, financials, employment, social footprint, past addresses. I'll have preliminary results in 48 hours. Do it, I said. It's not cheap, she warned. Neither was my marriage. She smiled, a small flicker of respect. You'll hear from me soon. 2 days later, I sat in my car outside a grocery store parking lot, phone buzzing with a new message from Tara. Photos attached. 9:17 p.m., Hotel Devonshire. 9:32 p.m., Madison Carter arrives. 11:47 p.m., both depart separately. I opened the file. The images were clinical, time-stamped, unambiguous. Logan's car parked in shadow. Madison entering the side entrance with a scarf over her hair. Logan leaving an hour later, eyes down. A second set of images followed. Same hotel, 3 nights later. Another meetup, another lie. My throat tightened until breathing felt like a choice. For all his crying and apologies, for all his I love yous, he was still seeing her, still choosing her. The phone rang. Tara. You saw them? She asked. Yes. Then you should also see this. She emailed a file while we spoke. That's your background check on Madison. I opened it. The first page alone made me go still. Age 24. Occupation, social media coordinator. Education, State University. Prior employment, 2 firms. Both ended abruptly. Incidents, internal complaints of inappropriate relationships with superiors. No formal charges. Further down, my breath caught. College scandal, year 3. Relationship with a married professor. Wife filed a formal grievance. No action taken. Professor resigned. Law firm employment. Terminated after boundary issues with a senior partner, also married. The pattern was undeniable. She's done this before, Tara said quietly, more than once. She targets married men. She targets stability, Tara corrected. Successful, middle-aged men. The kind with families and something to lose. She builds trust first, gets close through professional or social ties. Then, she replaces the woman, I finished. Tara hesitated. She's methodical. I'd call it practiced. Something inside me went cold. She's not just after attention, I said. She's after a life. Mine. Could be, Tara said. There's another thing. Your husband's finances. We found multiple small transfers into an account in his name only, about $40,000 so far. The words hit like another betrayal layered atop the first. He's moving money? Looks like it. Could be preparing for a split, or just funding the affair. Hard to say. Send me everything, I said. Already did. And Audra? Yes? Be careful. People like her don't just play with hearts. They play for keeps. That night I didn't sleep. I spread the documents across the dining table. Photos, timelines, transaction logs, printouts of Madison's social media. The house was dark except for the pool of lamplight spilling across evidence. This wasn't impulsive infidelity. This was a campaign. Years of quiet infiltration, disguised as friendship, sealed by trust. I thought of every moment she'd looked at me with wide, innocent eyes and called me second mom. Every meal she'd shared at my table. Every time I'd opened the door and said, "You're always welcome here." And she'd been, until she wasn't. By dawn, the shock had hardened into something colder, cleaner, a weapon maybe. When Tara called with the next update, I already knew what I'd say. "I want everything documented," I told her. "Every photo, every receipt, every text. Make it court ready. He's going to lose his story before I lose mine." She paused. "You sound calmer." "I am," I said, "because now I know the truth, and knowing is how the healing starts." But that wasn't the truth. Knowing wasn't healing, it was planning. The next morning, the sky outside my window was the color of wet concrete, the kind of dull gray that blurs time. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out of thoughts that hurt like splinters. My dining table was still a crime scene of evidence. Printed photos, spreadsheets, highlighted messages, every ugly truth laid bare. Tara's report sat on top of the pile, neat, organized, merciless. Madison's pattern was now an anatomy of destruction. Dates, addresses, faces, families. I stared at her college photo on the first page, the same smile I'd once called sweet, now looking like a blueprint for something surgical. It wasn't about Logan anymore. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about control. She hadn't stolen my husband out of love. She'd done it to prove she could. And if she'd studied me that closely, she should have known one thing. When I'm cornered, I don't break. I calculate. 2 weeks after hiring Tara, I had everything I needed. The investigation had become a grim kind of clockwork. Every 2 days, I'd receive another folder. Photos of Logan and Madison entering different hotels, emails confirming the cash payments, the growing evidence of his hidden account. He thought he was careful. New meeting places, private phones, but Tara's team tracked everything. Each timestamp was a nail in the coffin of his plausible deniability. When I looked at the photos, the pain dulled. In its place was precision. Every image, every receipt, every message was a data point in a plan I hadn't fully named yet, but could already feel forming behind my ribs. By the third week, I was done crying. Logan, meanwhile, was busy pretending to be sorry. He sent flowers, left voicemails about counseling, stopped by once with takeout just to check on me. He looked thinner, guilty. That used to move me. Now it just looked like weakness. "I still love you," he said one evening, voice soft, hands empty. I met his eyes. "You loved me, while sleeping with someone half my age in the bed we share. What exactly does your version of love cost these days?" He flinched. "Please, Audra, don't make this cruel." "Cruel?" I asked. "No, Logan. Cruel was Madison smiling at me while you hid behind her hair." He didn't answer. He just lowered his gaze, shame pretending to be remorse. "I'll be staying in the Marriott for a while," he murmured, "until things calm down." "Things?" I said quietly. "You mean me?" He didn't deny it. When he left that night, suitcase in hand, I watched from the window. He paused at the car, looking back toward the house, our house, like he expected me to call out. I didn't. I let the moment rot in silence. That weekend, Tara called. "I've got something else," she said. "Thought you'd want to see this." "What now?" "Madison. She's cleaning her digital footprint, deleting old posts, editing captions, closing comments. We retrieved backups, party photos, club nights, some pretty provocative stuff. She's been rebranding herself for about 3 years, ever since she met your daughter." A rebrand. Even her morality had a marketing strategy. "Send everything," I said. "I already have. There's something else. Your husband's account. He's been moving money again. Smaller amounts, but steady. Looks like he's helping fund her new apartment lease." The words turned to static in my ear. "He's what?" "She's moving downtown," Tara continued. "New address on file. He co-signed the lease under a business alias." My laugh startled even me. "So he's setting her up like a mistress from a bad novel." "Looks that way," Tara said. "You want me to dig deeper?" "No, I want you to document everything." That night, I opened my laptop again and scrolled through Madison's Instagram. The newer photos were all neutral now. Plants, coffee, inspirational quotes, nothing personal, nothing revealing. She was already polishing her new image, preparing for whatever life she planned next. It made sense. She'd done this before. New city, new version of herself, new victim. Not this time. She wanted my life? Fine. I'd let her walk right into it, then burn the whole illusion down. I spent the next few days thinking about revenge. Not the screaming, messy kind, the quiet kind that looked like grace. Marlene's birthday was coming up in a few weeks. She wanted a dinner, just close friends and family. Madison was, of course, invited. She'd RSVP'd with an emoji and 3 hearts. I almost admired the audacity. That was when the idea took shape. If Madison loved performances, I'd give her one worth remembering. I called Tara. I need your help staging something. What kind of staging? Proof, a reveal. Public? Very. She exhaled slowly. That's a line, Audra. Once you cross it, there's no uncrossing. I'm aware. I'll prep what you need, she said. Just be sure you want to live with the fallout. Fallout, I repeated. She's been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, smiling at my daughter. I'm already living in the fallout. I met with a divorce attorney the next morning, Catherine Morrison, recommended by Tara. Catherine was brilliant, measured, unflinching. I handed her the binder Tara had assembled. She flipped through the pages, eyebrows arching slightly, but never looking surprised. You have everything, she said finally. Photos, transactions, communications. This is airtight. I'm not trying to destroy him, I said. Just make sure the truth is seen. Understood. We'll file after your daughter's birthday. Why after? She looked up. Because you want to end the story on your terms. Let him and Madison have one more normal day before you take the mask off. I smiled faintly. You're very good at this. I'm very expensive at this, she replied, deadpan. I signed the retainer, worth every penny. That evening, I stood in the doorway of Marlene's old room. The walls were still covered with photos from her college days. Her and Madison laughing, arm in arm, sunlight catching their hair. They looked inseparable. I reached out and touched one picture, the edges curling slightly under my fingers. My daughter had chosen a friend who mirrored her light. Madison had chosen a family that mirrored her lack. You could have had us, I whispered to the empty room. You didn't have to take us. In the silence that followed, the plan solidified. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't hit. I wouldn't break anything except illusions. Madison had chosen the stage. I'd simply learned how to run the lights. 3 weeks before Marlene's birthday, I began rehearsing the performance that would end my old life for good. Revenge, I'd decided, wasn't about rage. It was about clarity, about showing people exactly what they'd built, and then letting them watch it collapse. I started with details, the guest list, the menu, the seating plan. Every choice had meaning. I made sure Madison's name was next to Marlene's on the place cards, front and center. I invited Logan, of course. His guilt would ensure attendance. I wanted him there. I wanted them both there when truth became spectacle. Catherine, my lawyer, handled the legal side. The divorce papers would be ready that same week, timed perfectly. Tara coordinated the evidence. Photos, videos, bank records, condensed into a single presentation. Every timestamp aligned. Every lie illuminated. I even hired a technician to help set it up so I could project it in my living room like a film premiere. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A film Madison had written and cast herself in. I was simply reclaiming the director's chair. Logan came by a few days before the party to talk. I didn't stop him. I needed to keep the illusion intact. He looked nervous, thinner, like the lies were devouring him from the inside. I heard you're hosting Marlene's birthday here, he said softly. That's kind of you. She's my daughter, I said evenly. I'd do anything for her. He nodded. Audra, after the party, maybe we can sit down, talk about... About what? About us. His eyes glistened. I miss you. I looked at him and saw the man I used to love like oxygen, now just another stranger trespassing through my house. We'll talk, I said, letting the words hang in the air like bait. He left smiling faintly, the way men smile when they think forgiveness is only a matter of time. Later that night, Madison texted me. Hey, Audra, I wasn't sure if I should still come to Marlene's party. I don't want to make things uncomfortable for you. I typed, deleted, retyped. You should come. Marlene wants you there. A few seconds passed. You're amazing, Audra. Truly. You've handled everything with such grace. Grace. That was her favorite word. Grace was just manipulation dressed in silk. I didn't reply. The night before the party, I walked through the house alone. The dining room table gleamed under the chandelier, place settings laid out like soldiers awaiting orders. Candles stood in perfect symmetry. I'd even set out Marlene's favorite cake, a lemon chiffon, pale yellow like sunlight. On the surface, everything was calm. Underneath, I could feel the storm humming, ready to break. I stood in front of the mirror by the hallway and practiced my expression, the polite smile of a gracious hostess, the composure of someone above pettiness. The truth was, I didn't want to look vengeful. I wanted to look inevitable. Tomorrow, they'd both finally understand that consequences aren't cruelty. They're choreography. The day arrived crisp and deceptively bright. I spent the morning decorating. Balloons, flowers, candles. I cooked, cleaned, arranged. Every motion was deliberate, a kind of meditation. When Marlene arrived, she was radiant. "Mom, this looks amazing. You didn't have to do all this." "Of course I did," I said, kissing her cheek. "It's your day." Guests began to arrive, her friends from work, a few cousins, Logan's business partners, and, inevitably, Madison. She was late, as expected. Grand entrances were her habit. When she finally walked in, the room softened around her. She wore blue, clever choice, the color of innocence. Her hair was loose, her smile radiant, her eyes scanning the room until they found me. "Audra," she said warmly, "thank you for having me." I smiled. "Of course, Madison. What would a family gathering be without you?" Her cheeks colored, just slightly. "Good." Logan arrived not long after. His handshake was firm, his voice too bright, the way guilt often sounds like optimism. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he told Marlene, handing her a small wrapped box. "Something special for my girl." The three of them, my husband, my daughter, and the woman who destroyed us, stood together in a tableau that would have looked perfect to anyone passing by. It almost made me laugh. We ate dinner, we toasted, we laughed. The performance was flawless. Even I started to feel the eerie calm that comes when you're standing on the edge of the moment you've waited for. When the plates were cleared and dessert was ready, I stood. "Before we have cake," I said lightly, "I want to show something. A little presentation for Marlene's birthday." Marlene grinned. "Mom, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," I said. "Everyone, if you could gather in the living room." They did, curiosity buzzing like static. Madison stood beside Logan near the back, one hand resting on his arm, subtle, possessive. I met her eyes and smiled once. Then I picked up the remote. The screen flickered to life. The first slide read, "The Truth About Madison Carter." At first, no one breathed. Marlene blinked, confused. "Mom, what—" "Just watch, sweetheart," I said quietly. The first image appeared. Logan and Madison entering a hotel, time-stamped. Then another, and another. Whispers rippled through the room. Madison's face drained of color. Logan froze. Marlene's voice cracked. "No, this can't be." "Oh, but it is," I said. Every lie, every meeting, every secret, all documented. The slides rolled on. Text messages, photos, bank transfers, Madison's pattern of affairs, her earlier scandals, everything Tara had uncovered. Each revelation another detonated truth. The room was silent except for the projector hum. When it ended, I turned on the lights. Madison's eyes glistened, not with tears, but fury barely caged. "You have no right," she hissed. "This is defamation. You'll what?" I asked softly. "Sue me?" "Everything you've just seen is fact. And there are copies with lawyers, in case you're wondering." She looked around, realizing there was no sympathy left to win. Logan stepped forward. "Audra, please." "Don't," I said sharply. "You both wanted to play games. Consider this the score." Marlene was crying now, hands shaking. "You slept with my father," she whispered to Madison. "In our house?" Madison opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had no performance left. Logan reached for Marlene. She flinched back. "Don't touch me." He turned to me, desperate. "You didn't have to do this in front of everyone." "Actually," I said, "I did." Because humiliation was the language they both spoke fluently. Catherine stepped forward then, handing Logan an envelope. "You've been served," she said briskly. "Divorce proceedings effective immediately." The color drained from his face. Madison snatched her purse, trembling. "This isn't over," she spat. "Oh, it's very over," I said calmly. "And Madison, don't contact me or my daughter again, or the next thing on that screen will be in court." She hesitated, realized no one in the room would defend her, and stormed out. The door slammed behind her, loud as a final verdict. Logan stood in the center of the room, looking lost. "Audra," he said weakly. "Leave," I said. He did, and just like that, the performance ended. The guests filed out in uneasy silence. Only Marlene stayed, sitting on the couch, tears streaking her cheeks. I went to her, unsure if she'd want me near, but she reached for me first. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she said, voice trembling. "I brought her into our lives." I held her. "No, sweetheart. She walked in on her own." She nodded into my shoulder, crying until she couldn't anymore. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. The truth was out. The performance was over. Tomorrow would be about rebuilding. But tonight, I let the silence settle over the wreckage like snow. soft, cold, cleansing. The morning after the birthday party felt strangely quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath. I expected to wake up heavy, wrecked, maybe even ashamed of what I'd done, but I didn't. The silence wasn't guilt, it was peace. The truth was out. No more pretending. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'd already thrown both shoes, and they'd hit exactly where I aimed. I walked through the living room, the scene of last night's devastation. The scent of extinguished candles lingered with the faint sweetness of lemon cake. Wrinkled napkins still sat on the counter. One of the balloons had deflated overnight, drifting down to the floor, its ribbon curled like an afterthought. I almost laughed. Even the party decorations were tired of pretending. On the couch, Marlene stirred under a blanket. She'd fallen asleep there sometime after midnight, her face tear-streaked, her hand still gripping mine. I hadn't wanted to let go either. She blinked awake now, groggy. "Morning." "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly. She sat up, hair tangled, eyes red. "Did any of that really happen?" "All of it," I said. "I'm sorry you had to see it that way." Her voice trembled. "No, I'm glad I did. I needed to." She wiped her eyes. "You carried that alone for weeks, didn't you?" I nodded. "I didn't want to break you before I had proof." She took my hand again. "You didn't break me, Mom. They did." We sat there in silence for a while, the kind of silence that mends instead of wounds. Finally, she said quietly, "I don't want to see either of them again." "You don't have to." Her eyes hardened. "She used me. Used us. And Dad—" She swallowed. "I don't even know who he is anymore." "Neither do I said, "but we'll figure out who we are without him." Logan didn't call that day. I half expected him to, but apparently humiliation still teaches manners. He did, however, leave a note in the mailbox. A coward's letter, delivered at a safe distance. "Audra, I know I deserve everything that happened last night. I won't make excuses. You deserved better. Please tell Marlene I love her. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I hadn't ruined ours. L." I folded the note and put it in a folder marked legal, right next to the divorce papers Catherine had filed. Later, she called to confirm. "It's official," she said. "Filing went through this morning. He's already been served." "Good," I said. "You know," Catherine added, "most people wait months before exposing everything. You did it all in one night." "I don't believe in half measures," I said. She chuckled softly. "You'd make a terrifying lawyer." "I prefer artist," I said. This was performance art. For a week, the house was both sanctuary and morgue. I cleaned everything, the glasses, the tablecloth, even the air. The sheets from our bed went into the trash, not the laundry. Some stains can't be washed, only discarded. Then came the lawyers, the signatures, the endless documents. Logan tried to negotiate a better settlement, claiming I'd humiliated him publicly. Catherine shredded that argument in court with surgical precision. The judge wasn't sympathetic to adulterers who transfer money into secret accounts. By the end, the house was mine. The savings, too, fair and legal. The world might not hand out justice often, but when it does, it's glorious. Madison, meanwhile, disappeared from social media. Her accounts went private, then vanished altogether. I didn't need Tara's report to tell me why. Within Logan's company, gossip spreads faster than truth. The photos from the party had traveled quietly but efficiently through their circle. Her job was gone within a week. Marlene told me later. They said she was creating a hostile work environment. No one wanted her there after what happened. I didn't smile, but I also didn't stop her from noticing that I didn't. It took time for the anger to dull into something livable. Nights were the worst. Lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd gone too far. I asked myself that question like prayer. Was it revenge or justice? Was I right to make it public? My therapist, Dr. Wells, listened carefully as I poured it out one Tuesday morning. She was calm, gray-haired, soft-voiced, the opposite of the chaos in my chest. "You exposed the truth," she said. "That's not cruelty. That's accountability." "Maybe," I said, "but I humiliated them, in front of everyone." Dr. Wells leaned forward. "And what would they have done if you hadn't?" "Gone on," I said. "Lied. Built a new version of us without me." She nodded. "Then you didn't destroy anything, Audra. You stopped them from rewriting your story." Her words stayed with me, because that's what it was about, really. I hadn't wanted vengeance. I wanted ownership. My life, my truth, my voice, taken back from the people who tried to edit me out. Weeks turned into months. Marlene stayed with me for a while, helping me reclaim the house. We repainted the bedroom, pale green instead of cream. New furniture, new sheets. The kind that still smelled like store plastic, not memory. One evening, as we painted in companionable silence, she said, "I still see her sometimes, in my dreams." "Madison?" She nodded. She's always smiling, like she knows something I don't. I paused mid-stroke. "That's because she wants you to keep carrying her. Don't." Marlene exhaled a long, trembling breath. "You're stronger than me, Mom." "No," I said, smiling faintly. "Just older. Pain teaches different lessons when you've had more time to listen." 3 months after the party, Tara called. "Thought you'd want to know," she said. "Your husband's keeping quiet. Madison's been blacklisted from a few companies. No one will touch her." "Good," I said. "Let her live with her consequences." Tara hesitated. "There's one more thing. A few other women reached out to me. Said they saw the footage from your reveal. Somehow it circulated in private groups. They've had similar experiences with Madison. Affairs, manipulation, financial exploitation. You started something, Audra." "I didn't mean to start anything," I said softly. "Maybe not," she said, "but you did." 6 months later, the divorce finalized. Logan kept his job, but his reputation never recovered. People trust what's convenient until they see evidence. I'd given them plenty. Marlene got promoted. She'd started seeing someone new, a quiet, kind man who brought her flowers without needing a reason. Watching her smile again was its own form of therapy. As for me, I started running again, cooking, reading, little things. The world didn't feel heavy anymore. Then, one afternoon, I saw her, Madison, at a cafe downtown. Her hair was shorter now, darker, almost severe. She wore sunglasses and a black coat. Across from her sat a man, mid-40s, wedding ring gleaming under the light. They were leaning close, whispering. The pattern, still repeating. She looked up then. Our eyes met through the glass. For a moment I saw it again, the calculation. That same smile, half triumphant, half taunting. I didn't flinch. I smiled back, calm, steady, untouchable. Then I turned away. Because I'd already won. When I got home that evening, the sun was low, spilling gold across the kitchen walls. I was cooking dinner, pasta, Marlene's favorite, when I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time in a year, I didn't see grief there. I saw peace. Everything she'd tried to take from me, I'd rebuilt. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but honestly. The cracks were still there, and maybe they always would be, but the light came through them now. Madison had smiled at me once, thinking she'd taken my life. But this time it was my turn to smile. And mine meant freedom. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story too.